can avoid contact with systems. Big systems, little systems, systems mechanical and electrical, and those special systems that consist of organized associations of people. As a parent, the systems that you're connected to and interact with are generally known as human service systems. Systems are everywhere.
My name is Sandra Goff. Along with my family, I live in Carman, Manitoba. My husband's name is John, and I have 2 children. Jill is 12 and Liam is 10. When Liam was about a year, we realized that he was developmentally delayed, and when he was about 2, he was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder. We don't know a lot about this disorder, but for Liam it means that he is developmentally delayed. He has fine and gross motor issues, very limited speech, and ADHD. We knew from past experience that the healthcare system required advocacy. We made the phone calls, we were fairly relentless, we got a diagnosis fairly quickly compared to most families. We were very naive though in understanding that social programs and the education system would require advocacy. We were not aware that our systems aren't really designed to support the people who are unique.
The second thing about systems and parent advocates you need to really think about is that with a system, it's not personal. A lot of parents, the first emotion they have is that this is personal. And why wouldn't you take it personally when you care deeply about someone and this is something that you think would really help them, and someone is saying, no, we're not going to do that, or we can't do that. That's very difficult. But in my experience, it's not personal. It can get personal if it gets to a conflict state and people make it personal, but in general, it's not personal. And I think parents, when they're advocating, the less they make it personal, the more they're organized and rational and base it on evidence, the stronger a case they'll make. Because really, it's what I've come to call over the years the bear and the bug syndrome. So systems are bears, and a lot of times individuals advocating, and we're like bugs. The bear is big, and we're just flying around. And if we're just flying around, and for instance, I would say complaining. If we're just complaining, if we go into an advocacy situation and we're just complaining, the bear can take that for years. The bear can listen to our complaining. It's just a little buzzing sound. So have to be really organized and know what we're doing, parents and people supporting advocates. But by saying know what we're doing, I mean we have to know whatever system we're in, we have to know what that system is about, how it thinks about itself, how it describes itself, and how it behaves, because systems have predictive behaviors, and so that's something that parents can learn. But they have to learn it. The Family Advocacy Network is a major step forward, and the family gathering is a major step forward for finally, after a number of years of parents not getting much support around education and learning, that's happening now. Now parents are learning how to make a presentation to a system, to a school system. If you're meeting with a teacher or a principal, and you say, I'm not happy, you're doing a lousy job, that's not going to get it done. So parents have to prepare.
I remember a particular time we were advocating within the education system for different treatment for Liam. We needed to go meet with the school board. We'd met with everyone else, not a lot had changed, and it was time to take it up the chain. So we scheduled a meeting with the school board and were invited to come present. And I was really nervous. I really felt like that was probably as high as we could take this, and it was our one shot to make things better. So I talked to some people about, making that kind of presentation. We don't know a lot of people with kids like ours, but lots of people have had to go and meet, advocate for other things. So I was talking to people, and someone told me to picture myself, actually maybe it was Bob Jones, that says, picture yourself wearing a cape. Someone else told me that I need to picture my heart breathing to stay calm. And when I walked in the room and they told me where I had to sit with people all around in front and behind me, which is super uncomfortable, I started laughing because all of a sudden all I could picture was my heart wearing a cape and it was fluttering around in my chest. The systems we're involved with are Children's Disability Services and of course the education system. With both those systems, there have been times when we've been working with fabulous staff and they've taken the time, they've had the experience, they've got to know Liam and they've got to know our family, and they've been able to make the system work for us. But it always feels like they're pushing the system or they're making an exception or they're fighting the system on our behalf. Other times when we've had staff members, and not that, they haven't been bad staff members, they seems like they lack the training or the experience or the support from the system, and they don't know how kind of to fight it within the system, and that's when it's really hard on a family. It feels like there's nowhere to go. I certainly don't have any training on systems, just a little bit of experience now over the past 10 years, but it is my perception that systems were designed for the norm, and most people aren't the norm, and some people are very unique in their needs. So it feels like when you're trying to get a system to support a child with special needs, you really are always looking for an exception.
When parents are learning about where their son or daughter is going to go to school, where they're going to live, where they're going to spend their days, what they're going to do spending their days, they know their child, and they know what situations their child really does well in. But systems aren't built for individual preference. They're built like a fixed menu. That is, they offer a certain number of things, and if you have one of those things, they don't substitute that for that easily. So an example I would think of that would be, and I've encountered this in being an ally to some parents, is my daughter wants to move, or my son wants to move. We want them to move from this house because the people they're living with, it's not compatible. Now, compatibility is keenly important to everybody. We understand it. It's an element of intimacy, and it's an element of feeling welcomed. It's an element of security. And when it isn't there, all the opposites are there. Insecurity is there. Not feeling welcome is there. So the request might be, I want the main course, which is a place for my child to live. I just want to substitute where that is. I'd like something different. I want to live someplace. And parents are very, very good at articulating what that means. They're very good at articulating what the environment in which their child will flourish, is the way I think about it. They can describe that. But the system, and the system is not bad or mean or any of those things. Systems are designed in certain ways around compliance and effectiveness and efficiency. Well, I shouldn't say effectiveness, efficiency for sure. And so in the situation that I was in, that I can remember well, was they wanted their child to move to a different home with different people, fewer people, and to think about who the people were that they were going to be living with. Did they like them? Simple thing like that. Did they share interests? Was the person kind? Just human things. These are the things that when I talk about compliance conversations, those things are difficult for parents, because the question, when they say all these things about their child, really they're saying my child's unhappy, my child's not doing well, my son or daughter, not a child, it could be an adult child, my son or daughters. And the compliance response is, we don't have the capacity to move you, because there'll be several reasons for doing that. Or if it's not capacity, that sometimes they'll say, if we do this for you, we have to do this for everybody. And I've heard that many times over the years. It's not true. If one person wants to move to live in another house with different people, there's no evidence that within a week everybody that lives in a residence is going to want to move. They're terrified of precedent. Will precedent be set that you can move? Well, if the precedent is that people are going to move from a place that they're unhappy, don't feel safe, and it's not working for them, to a place where the opposite will happen, where they really find a place, their home, then a precedent is a good thing. But so for parents, these are difficult things to hear. When these conversations are going on, parents sometimes lose the thread of what we really want to do here, and it becomes emotional. And once again, that goes back to the bear and the bug. Well, related to systems, I think parents need to learn that they have to be knowledgeable. That if you are going to work with a system, you have to know what it is, who they say they are. There's a whole bunch of things. I'd like to start and use an example that's fresh in my mind, which would be education. I've met parents in the last year school was a big thing, the school coming up and wondering what their kids were going to do, what classroom they'll be in, and things like this. And several were concerned because of what they felt the quality of education had been for their child in previous years. When I started talking to them, what I was very surprised about was that they had almost no knowledge about the system, the school system. So I asked them, for example, have you ever read the legislation from the Department of Education, the law around school? They said no. I wasn't asking it like an accusation, but I said, have you read that? No. So I said, what can you tell me about your school division and their policy related to the program in the school that your child will be in? And they said, oh, I don't know, they have something, we have it, and so we found that, but that was not something that they had really read and understood. And then there was the school. Like I said, what about the school? What's their position? What's their policy? What's their description? How do they talk about the program? And they sort of could talk about that. And then the classroom. I said, could you give me some stuff about what the classroom, what the expectations are in the classroom, what you can expect? And there really we were just staring at each other, and then we started laughing because they said, oh, we really haven't looked at this stuff enough. And then they gave me reasons, and their reasons were valid, that they're focused on their child getting up in the morning and going to school and what happens during that day. That's their short-term concern. Their long-term concern, and why I bumped into them, was they were really worried that their kids weren't learning anything, like really substantially learning anything. And so we talked about how do you address competence with a school, say even at the classroom level. And that's, when you bring up the question of competence, you say, you don't let them define competence, you define competence for the school. So for instance, you say, what can I expect my child to know this month that they didn't know last month? What can I expect my child to know the next month that they didn't know the last month? What can I expect my child to do? Because school is about acquiring competence. And if your child is in a school and they're not acquiring any competence, or there's no skill acquisition, then you've got a problem. Well, what we did then was, and why I told them why I was asking them so much about the written material, I said we need to spend some time going through all this material, because many times what you want to have happen is buried somewhere in that material, in the mission statement of the school division, in the mission statement of the school, in the objectives of the school. Many of the things that are written down are exactly what you want for your child. They're right there, but they're not happening. But you're in a much stronger position when you're asking for something that they say they do and aren't doing than when you're asking for something that they don't do. And so that's a very important thing for parents to do. The other thing is the first meeting, because of compliance conversations, is often going to be a no. You're going to go in, you're going to want something, they're going to say no. You have to shift away from thinking that the sky has fallen to walking out and giving yourself a high five and saying, great, we're started. Because you're not really started until there's a no. The skill you need to have, the skill we need to support parents to have, is to record the no. Write down, have someone with you who writes down everything about the no. And get used to letting the other side talk instead of you talking all the time. Let them explain why your child can't have this or that, and write that down. Write that down, and if it's a no meeting, then that's when you email or write or communicate after, what you're going to have is information that you're communicating. Not just your anger, not just your annoyance, but you're going to be able to say, the school says it's going to do this, we asked for this, and they said no. And so you're talking about that. Now you're not asking for the moon, you're asking them to do what they say they do. After 20 years of doing this stuff, it's easy for me to do this stuff now, to be calm in the meeting. Save your anger for your friends and family. Save it for the people who love you, who you can sit down and say, I am furious, and just dump that all out and have them honor your anger. There's two kinds of anger. There's righteous anger, which is anger you deserve to be angry. You're righteously angered, right? And then there is out of control anger, which leads to kind of aggressive behavior. I always try to make the distinction that when any kind of advocacy situation, you have to make sure that your communication is not aggressive. That is, it doesn't insult or threaten. And anger can do that. When we move to anger, we move to insult and threat really quickly. So I think righteous anger is what you share with family and friends, and that is that you are hurt and you are angry about the situation your child is in, and you would like to scream at somebody and then scream to your friends, but when you meet with people, have your anger under control. That's what I would tell parents, because it doesn't win. Yelling, at least I have no examples in my experience of anger pushing a system towards resolution.